Hey guys, it's Will. Hopefully you're having a great Sunday afternoon today. We're jumping in and let's get right into it. So, first things first, for our Sunday stock talk, if you have any ticker symbols, feel free to comment them down below and let me know if you have any specific companies you'd like us to take a look at. I wanted to start it off today with some top AI stocks for the week, and we can go to some top data center companies, top space stocks, tech. We can even take a look at quantum and jump in. Elvis, what's going on? Elvis is looking at Redwire, CTM, and LUNR. Elvis, what are you looking at in those ones? Are you bullish on them? Are you bearish on them? Do you have them as positions and you are wondering about something specific? Let me know what you're looking for. Kind of a format would be, what's your ticker symbol you'd like us to go over, and then what is the reason for why you're going over it today. And we can kind of jump in to your pick that you got going. And then same thing. So what else do we got going? Big week for APLD. We could definitely take a look there. Appreciate you tuning in. Feeder 94. What's going on? How are you doing? And then Biggie, what's going on? Hi, Will. How are you? I'm doing great. Doing very well today. Just got to go spend some time with some family. I've been wearing a Santa hat all day long as we're preparing for Christmas here in Argentina with my wife's family. All right, JML, how about REKR? I don't know. Haven't checked that one out. What are you watching with that one? Arthur, BBAI. What are you looking at with BBAI, Arthur? Let me know. All right, so let's jump into it. The top companies for, let's start it off in AI. So one of the companies Elvis was just pointing out was CTM. Okay, so let me know what you're following there on CTM. But what we got going is going to be over in the AI defense market here, and that's going to be CTM stock. So CTM stock is currently at a pretty low market cap, so there's some risk associated with the company. They are at just around $100 million. So I would urge caution if you're watching this company. But Elvis, here's what we got. You have this considerable market cap build from 15 cents a share back in this time last year to today. They're valued at $1 a share, and they've been growing pretty significantly over the last year and then consolidating for the last few months. And as you can see, they're kind of holding above this 200-day moving average, or trying to hold above the 200-day moving average, and looking to continue some of the trend back up into this level around $1.15 to $1.32. Why would they do that? And possibly also they got the support level. If they can't continue the uptrend, they might sell back down into this support level. But why do we hold them? Actually, I do hold them. So that's just another disclosure. I hold this company. When we're looking at the market of fintech, and you're looking at or not fintech, but government tech that is for AI. CTM is a company that provides services for the US government. And they definitely sold off, no doubt about it, during the government shutdown. But now they've seen some recent headwinds overcome with their contracts that they've got. They got a $66 million deal here. Now, one thing to consider, while they have the $66 million there and another $100 million contract, they've also been fairly consistent. There's no hype around this stock. So you're probably not maybe you're expecting something really massive, and it's possible because institutions buying in could move this stock big time because it's only $98 million a quarter, or a market cap. However, just to kind of consider their current outlook, they don't have any hype, so there's not a lot of attention on this company. And sometimes what happens is a company, they have the good financials. In this case, they got consistent revenue of around 15 million a quarter. They've narrowed down that net profit margin, which you could see it's getting more favorable. So revenues surging, and they've reduced their debt here down 43% and up over 550% on their cash. So that looks good. But when you consider just the attention, while we're not a company that really looks at, I'm not someone that personally invest in hype. It's very rare that we're investing in hype. And it's very rare that we would invest in anything that's ever moving because people are talking about it. And more than likely, it's going to be something that has seen real world value, and the financials are lining up, and the charts lining up, and the news is looking good, and the fundamentals are looking good. And that's usually what we look for, not so much the hype. Now, that being said, when you have a stock that has some hype or has some more attention, you're going to see a lot more, obviously, you're going to see a lot more attention, a lot more, volatility and growth. We haven't really seen that on CTM stock. It's really just stayed flat almost the entire year. I mean, look at that. With the exception of a few institutions buying in earlier in the year, it's basically flat through the whole year between 90 cents and $1.50. And so that's the only thing that's kind of just very kind of, you could say, bland. And I actually really like that. I like that it's bland. And we have seen that while it's consolidating, some of the levels it's made up to around $1.30 to as high as $1.50. Currently, if you look at their market cap, it's only at 98 million. So if they're making, 160 million in their recent contracts they've signed this year, their balance sheet is up, their revenue is growing, then I would imagine this market cap for the stock could actually be around 250 million to 400 million. And you take into consideration that they're doing the agentic AI for the government, that there's not really a lot of hype or anything like that, but that would maybe catch on later potentially. Then yeah, it looks like right now they could be undervalued. I'd love to pull them up in Prophecy app as well and get an analysis going for them. You can see projections holding over 4% over the next month, with the support level currently at $1 a share, now at $1.05. And then the nearest resistance level is right there around $1.10, give or take. So fairly bullish on CTM. However, there's obviously going to be risk in a stock that has a market cap that low. And while I hold it long term, we've been in it since about 87 cents a share. It's important to have a look with caution. And that's really just it. All right, next one we got here. Let's see, we got feeders taking a look at APLD. Yeah, so APLD, we did a full video on APLD today. The data center market is growing very fast. And while a lot of people were getting kind of shook around the whole valuation standpoint of AI and, those types of conversations around, oh my gosh, are things overextended? There was a little bit of an overextension, even with APLD. I think we saw them jump up to, what was it, $50 a share or $40 a share before pulling back down. Currently, their market cap's around $8 billion. They've got about $16 billion in pipeline of building data centers. So I think that they're actually still undervalued. And that's not, you could look at the chart and say, oh yeah, it's looking like it's maybe going to sell back down a little bit. That's possible. As the RSI and MACD look a little overbought, but I'm talking about just the fundamentals here. From an AI data center perspective, you got to give weight to the fact that all these companies like CoreWeave and Microsoft and Google and OpenAI, ChatGPT, demand has been increasing to where the data centers are a necessity for the evolution of this AI boom that we're in. And so that's really why APLD is a top pick. Now, current levels, you can see they're growing over the last month. They've made some very consistent levels up in this consistent uptrend through December, starting mid-November. And since $19 a share, they've really consistently had this uptrend, and they're currently uptrending. You can see this higher highs, higher lows, very consistent. A lot of times they've been pulling back at market open. In fact, we traded them earlier this last week, or the week before last week, end of last week, on APLX, and that's up 58%. So that was a 2x of APLD. But yeah, I mean, what we were trading, I think we were getting in right down here around a support level where it dipped down at market open, and then we see them start to recover throughout the rest of the day. it's kind of like something that happens almost every morning in a bull market is, you're either seeing a big surge and then kind of sell off, or you get that sell down in price, maybe even a manipulation before you see the markets accumulate and you see the APLD or a lot of the stocks recover from that dip. And so that's kind of what we were playing this last week. It's not something that we oftentimes play or expect, let's say, a profit within an hour or even a few minutes. I don't really play that game just because of, if you really understand the amount of frequency that that Wall Street plays on, they're kind of in another dimension when it comes to the couple minute trades, things like that. We don't really even play that. A lot of times we're looking at the institutional attracting value. When you're looking at a company like APLD and you see them sign some of the deals, it's actually a little bit of an alpha right now that investors have when looking at APLD stock, because I was seeing, who was it? Was it Biggie or I have to look in the chat and see who it was, but I think it was, okay, yeah, it was Feeder94, and then you got some of you guys are looking at Redwire. But what we were talking about was that, with APLD, you had them sign multiple data center deals for 16 billion in cumulative contracts, but that really hadn't showed up on their revenue. Like, yes, their revenue is up 84% year over year, but it's not a lot when you consider that the contracts were billions of dollars and they're only showing about $64 million in the last quarter. So in reality, we would expect their revenue to increase substantially in the next few quarters if those agreements that they signed, again, they got 16 billion in AI leases right now. There's a conversation from a company saying it's a 300% rally. It's, obviously there's hype articles right now, and you just got to kind of go directly to the source. We can go directly to the source. We could see what they're announcing directly from the company, and that's kind of the moment of truth. And then we can take that data and we can run it through some of the AIs and get some analysis, like on Claude, for example. And we can see what the next levels look like. Let's see, if I was looking at Grok was very bullish on APLD. In fact, it's projecting that it's going to get nearly $50 a share by the end of the year. And currently in their trend, as they're continuing up and they're making this break above $30 a share, the company is in a cutting edge industry and they've sold down here to $30 with a support at $30 a share. We'll see how they hold here at market open tomorrow morning. And if they can make that run back up to around 33 bucks a share, or even up to that 35 level, we're looking at about a 10% margin for profit. As you can see, they just continue in their overall uptrend they're in right now. Now, we actually rode this from back here earlier this last week, around $27 a share. And then we also have some long-term positions because we've been covering them since about $3 a share. So not any like short-term day trades that we're looking at making right now, but that is the approach. And the approach is essentially watching institutions recognize the demand for AI and flocking to some of the infrastructure plays that are going to yield value for all the value they're providing to big tech by essentially building those data centers. So that's really just it in APLD. So again, $30 support, kind of watching that level of resistance up there around $33 a share, which is 10% higher. So you'd be looking at kind of risk down here to about $30 a share support level. What else do we got going? You got JML, REKR. We went over CTM. We got a few of you that are saying BITF, BBAI. What's going on, JZEV? Did you get your free t-shirt yet? I think we got that thing sent over to you. Redwire from Shaw's. You got Redwire looking at, or Shaw's is looking at Redwire. How are you doing? And okay, so I'm gonna be real with you guys. When we're considering space tech, there is only one large company that is that is the big conversation in space tech right now. And it's definitely going to be SpaceX, because SpaceX even just announced that they're going to be going public soon, which I should probably talk to one of my friends that works at SpaceX, see if maybe we can work something out as far as share accumulation, because I've been meaning to get some shares. And in that infrastructure, you're seeing also, as everybody's talking about SpaceX and looking at SpaceX and seeing Starlink develop and see all these things continue to grow in the AI space, you're then, or in the space tech space, you're looking at a more broad conversation with investors looking at other space tech companies. And some of the other top space tech companies include ASTS. They're doing the 5G from space, so the phone internet from space. Their financials and their valuation still looks a little high, but they have partnered with Verizon and AT&T and others. And then you also got Rocket Lab. Rocket Lab is launching a lot of rockets and allowing space companies to get their products into space, whether it's for satellite images or for transportation in space, or maybe they want to have a government type contract where it's defense and they're having some space defense up there. Rocket Lab is really working on that, or if it's exploration, like out to Mars or things like that. And so you have these top companies. LUNR is another one. AMD is in the conversation because they're providing value to Starlink. And in this development, there are a few companies that are on our list. Obviously, you can see them here. And one of them is going to be Redwire. I'm going to pull them up here. Prophecy, let's get an analysis. And it looks like they're nearing a $6 support level with the nearest resistance at $6.50. And most analysis indicates, so we can kind of get an idea of what the most accurate, okay, looks like the 1 day has the most confidence for that, anticipating a little bit of a sell down for Redwire. And so Redwire is one of the companies that currently in the space world has seen increases in revenue. And they've started to validate our 3 stages to a reversal. And so this is kind of what we were covering last week, which was Redwire was selling down, and they had a very consistent pattern. They're just selling down, lower lows. You could see them just really selling down since about October. And they sold from $11 all the way down to $4.87. Then they consolidated. So this is the second stage to a reversal. First, you have the initial trend, and then second, you have the left to right, or the stabilization, or the consolidation, where you see it go left to right here, kind of just swinging between the support and resistance. And then we saw them break out, validate that previous resistance here, kind of pull back down to it on Friday, and then shoot up to 650 by the end of the day. And so we saw them get up to 650. It was about a 20% breakout here towards the end of the week. And so Redwire, actually, when we were looking at the Fibonacci and we were looking at the best entry prices, and I do have some long-term positions on Redwire as well over in the Schwab portfolio. I invest in the company, but I don't have any short-term trades. But we've been looking for the short-term trades for this company. And one of the recent indicators is you see that breakout, and they're now starting to reverse back up. Now, the levels that we saw back here earlier this year were around $20 a share, up to as high as $26 a share, which is currently about a huge increase from where they're currently at. Just back to $11 where they were back here in October would be a 100% increase. Okay, and so just about a 100% increase potential in this stock. Now, why would that be validated? Well, you can see they start to break out. They just pushed above this EMA, starting to get a little more upward momentum. And they also came in with revenues that were increased in the last quarter. So they signed some contracts. I went to a space conference where I got to meet their team and see them sign a contract for $2.6 billion, that they're one of the top 13 prime contractors. And then shortly after that, they signed some more deals. And in this last quarter, they came in with revenue of over 100 million. Revenues over 100 million, up 50% year over year. They were increasing their revenue pretty consistently over the last few years. And then their balance sheet, they were negative with more liabilities. They dropped their debt and increased their assets. Now they got about 1.5 billion in assets and about 400 million in liabilities. So with over $1 billion in equity alone, not including the around 300 million they're doing per year, so that's about $1.3 billion in positive money coming in for Redwire. And their market cap is not 1.3 billion, it's still 1 billion. So, given their current valuation, they're actually quite undervalued from a financial standpoint. But then from, even a chart standpoint, you kind of take a look and just see that they've been beat down for a little bit, starting to make some recoveries, get some new contracts in the space tech market. And I'm really liking what we're seeing as they continue to break out. That's how that looks. Archsphere says, let's go, Archsphere. Good to see you here. We got some other good ones. Soundhound. What's going on, Oli? You hold Redwire at an average price of $13. Where do I see it going this week? Elvis, it's going back to $13 this week, so you're going to be okay. Nah, I'm just kidding. I don't know. We shall see. Yeah, again, the institutional value indicates that there could be a lot more attraction around this stock, that it really, realistically, could be trading at around $10 to $20 a share, just like we saw it a few months ago. And maybe even higher, up to that $26 price point, but that was pretty overextended at that point. And then if you look at some of the projections, let's take a look here into Prophecy AI and see what it says. As you can see, over the next year, it's anticipating to get well over $7. That's not quite as bullish as maybe you're looking for. And then Claude is also bullish as well. Is it as bullish as what we saw with Grok? I don't believe so, but we could test and see. But anyway, hopefully that's helpful for you. Again, $6 support level on Redwire with some bullish targets, as it's really found maybe a double bottom here and continuing to reverse out. And their financials look fairly favorable for the space tech company, so we'll continue to watch them. All right, let's see. So, Claude is about 18% per year projections, and most projections from AIs are fairly bullish. And my projections are a little more aggressive than what we're seeing here. But nevertheless, a general consensus from AIs in just kind of all the intelligence seem to be pretty bullish. I'd also like to take a look at some of the insider buying and selling, kind of see how that looks. It looks like you have, for the most part, let's see, AE Industrials is buying. They've had 18 buys of institutions versus only one sale. So fairly bullish, as Vanguard has been acquiring, BlackRock has been buying, State Street and others. And then insider-wise, you got the CEO has actually been buying shares. And it seems like for the most part, we're looking pretty bullish according to the institutional buys on Redwire. All right, so what else do we got going on? We got, what other stocks we got going? Big Bear AI. Arthur says, what's going on, Arthur? How are you doing today? Well, Arthur, where are you from? Where are you guys tuning in from? Let me know. Let's see, BITF was what JZev wanted to see. Let's take a look there at BITF. So BITF is a data center company. Let's see how this is going. We could start here actually with the insider and institutional buying. So BITF has sold down significantly. I just entered some long-term positions. It's one of our positions that currently is down right now. I think probably about 20 to 30%. But we have seen some green. Oh, we bought it over in Schwab. And so we've been watching there, and as you can see, it's fairly bullish into the next month, and insider activity shows more buys than sells, and or institutional activity shows more buys than sells, and then insider activity indicates much more buying. No, there is more selling on the insiders. Insiders have been selling drastically more than buying. So insider sales, fairly negative indication on Bitfarms. Bitfarms, they develop and operate vertically integrated. Originally, it was Bitcoin mining facilities. Now they've pivoted to AI infrastructure for tech companies. And they just came out with their earnings in the last month. Speaking of which, we do have some earnings coming out for this week. In Stockmates, we'll have some targets here. They aren't reporting this week, but you got Oracle, which, by the way, kind of cool. Oracle, as I'm in Puerto Madero here, just across this port right here. There's a water port, and it's a nice view of a few like skyscrapers, you could say. And Oracle is right across the street here, or right across the port, and I actually see them all day, so it's kind of cool to see them. So they're reporting earnings this week. Planet Labs is reporting along with Broadcom. Broadcom will give us some insight into the chip market, see how that's going this week. And then when it comes to, again, like looking at BITF, I think they're fairly well sold down right now. And the insider selling makes me re-question some of the recent moves, because we were seeing them kind of downtrend here. And then this is when we started buying in. Right here, we saw them sell down and then recover. And as you could see, BITF has had some trends currently where they're kind of selling down. Do you see this? Selling down, and they're potentially going to continue to sell down into this 275. I wouldn't like to see it. In fact, what I'm anticipating is more of something like this, a trend that looks something like this. Okay, and we're going to see them recover and then see them retest once again like they did this past week at that 350 resistance we were watching. See them test that and potentially break back out into that 375. And then if that takes place, then you're looking very bullish for the data center company. But what is it that's interesting about them? Well, the money in data centers is big. I don't know that they came in with any crazy earnings. Their earnings showed negative net income, but revenue was up about 155%. But what I did notice about what they were doing is they were converting, let's see here, they were converting their current data centers into tech-enabled data centers. So they have Panther Creek, they have Scrubgrass, Washington, Sharon. It's called Bunker in Canada. It's called Legger and by Comeau and Garlock and Cowansville. Quite interesting names. And they have all these different little data centers that they're essentially going to be renting out their compute. And so it seems like they have revenue, but still negative net income. So I'm actually reevaluating that position. In fact, I'm a little more skeptical after their recent earnings that just came out. Their balance sheet increased, which was good, but the insider selling, I don't like to pay attention to it too much, given that their market cap is where it is, and it seems fair to see where they're at currently. But it is a little bit strange to see how much insider selling is going on. So nevertheless, most projections look bullish for Bitfarms. In fact, they're anticipating over a 42% gain over the next year, according to Claude AI, when paired with the data we gave it that we normally consider, like SEC filings and the charts, the news, and the relative levels to watch currently. And we'll see at market open, it's anticipating still green on BITF. So see how it reacts tomorrow morning. It looks like it's fairly bullish, actually. I'm definitely going to be using that to weight some of the positions tomorrow. What else do we got going on? So BITF, again, I would hold. I'm not really buying this stock right now, although we'll watch tomorrow morning, see if it kind of validates here and maybe makes that run back up to 350 from the $3 a share, as it's got a support at $3. See what else we got here. Saver, what's going on? Saver the skies. What about Rich Tech Robotics stock? You're bullish. Okay. Well, what makes you bullish on that one? What makes you bullish on Rich Tech Robotics? Is there something specific? Let's see. Okay. Jai says, hey, Rich, my friend, those AI projections can never be true. Rationale is with generative AI, you will need to have more history data stats to input for projections to give you the right predictions. Okay, well, yeah, that's exactly what you need, and that's exactly what we include, actually. So, yes, sir. So, if you say they can never be true, then you say what it would take for them to be true. Then technically, they could be true. And what if I told you that we do give them extra data and make the models real time? Dun, 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 dun. Okay, what else we got going on? Let's see. Kyle says, Sound. What's going on, Kyle? How are you doing? Let's take a look at Sound stock. So the AI company Sound, they've had some recent momentum into this year, but have since sold off. If we go over to the AI and large language model companies, you can see that they are here in this list somewhere. Let's see, maybe we got to search them up. There they are. They're at $12.95 currently. And they've recently sold down to about $10 and recovered. And they have a consistent uptrend over the last year. We actually started covering this stock around November of last year. And it was crazy because obviously it pumped up to $24 by January. It was just an absolute amazing AI surge right there on the Sound stock. And a few reasons contributed to that. Number one, it was the Hyundai partnership. They were working with like Stellantis. They're working with these top companies. I think it's like Chipotle. They're working with White Castle. They were possibly even at some point working with McDonald's to do the AI conversational bots for the drive-thrus. And they also got some partnerships there with even financial companies. But it was the Hyundai, the Kia, Genesis, Stellantis partnership there, along with NVIDIA kind of backing them. And then NVIDIA apparently slightly pulled out, but that they're still an investor in the company. And they are going direct to enterprise level companies and enabling them with AI Sound, so AI agents. I've actually not used Sound. I've created my own, but if you give our company a call, let's say you're using Prophecy app here and you're building your watch list and you get your watch list together, and then you're like, oh, I want to search a stock, and you come over here and you search a stock, and then you search Microsoft, and you're like, wait a second, Microsoft isn't working, even though it's working, but you need help, right? So when you call us, it's actually an AI that answers and says, hey, Will Rich created me. I'm here to answer your questions. And it's been working great. A lot of people have said, hey, I have this question. Can you let Will know this? Or it helps them. It's an AI. It's way smarter than a normal like customer service bot, right? And so that's exactly what SoundHound has done. They've developed those types of bots for even drive-thrus at major fast food. And so the problem is that while they've done that, it's not necessarily something that's hard to do as a company. As I mentioned, I just did it as in my company. And we don't run a multi-billion-dollar company yet. And if you look at our revenue, or the revenue here, $42 million, 42 million, 67% revenue. The balance sheet is at 700 million, so they've got some money there. They got the revenue up to 42 million. That market cap of 5.3 billion, it's pretty high up there. It's a pretty high up there market cap. And so currently, I think SoundHound, while they're still in their perfect trend, and they've really held a very nice trend. Do I have something going on in my mouse? Maybe there's like a hair in my mouse or something. So I'm like trying to move my mouse. There we go. But if you look at the pattern here on SoundHound, you can see that they're very consistently kind of uptrending over the last year, building market cap from just $1 a share to now 12. And they're looking to find support here around this 200-day moving average. Now, I would say it's still high risk. I know it's selling down. You see a little bit of a recovery, but again, market cap's tight. So kind of watch there. $22 a share would be the bullish full picture recovery, and that's a 92% increase. But right now, they're just going to face resistance at this $12 to $13 price point. They've already been rejected here just about a week ago or 2 weeks ago in the end of November. And at $13 a share, there is a resistance for Sound. Now, if they break above 13, the next target is going to be about $15 a share right here. And we could kind of cross-reference that and see how it comes out here on Prophecy as well. Let's see how it looks. $11.50 resistance. Okay. Currently, nearest resistance there is at $12.95 or $13. So exactly, yeah, $13 resistance on SoundHound. And if it can break above that, then you're looking bullish up into that $15 range. So again, watch there, because if it can't hold that resistance, if it can't break above that $13 price point, it does have a resistance currently. And if it gets rejected, you may see it sell down to as low as $11.50, back down to this support and consolidate further. So again, kind of selling back down here. But if they break out above 13, it's starting to look more bullish, more like a reversal, similar to what we saw back here when they went from $9, or really from around this $11 price point up into that $22 price point. So they're currently there. They're looking to make a similar run with a resistance at 13. What else do we got going on? Okay, you got Kyle. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Again, I would say the company has a little bit of an overvaluation currently due to their current financials. But it doesn't mean that they wouldn't be worth more in the future, SoundHound. But currently, just looking at their financials, like, yeah, you get a McDonald's deal or something, they're going to surge for sure. But 42 million in revenue, negative 109 million in their market, or in their negative net income. So they lost money, and they're at 5.36 billion. Yeah, it's still seeming like it's a little bit on the overbought side or overvalued side currently. But again, sometimes these AI stocks, they price in for what's going to hit the revenue income statement later. And that resistance at $13, they're going to have to break above again to make, to potentially use it as a support. Yeah, of course, Kyle, no problem. Here for you if you need anything. All right. Saber says, what about robotic stocks like Serve and Rich Tech Robotic? They had a strong week last week. Yes, the next evolution of AI, you got software, then you have robotics, then you're probably going to have something related to something that's integrated with humans, probably. Now, that's pretty big, but let me just say, in the evolution of AI, software is big, obviously, with a lot of these companies, but the robotics is a really big market as well. The only thing to be careful of, again, I'm not trying to rain on anybody's party here, when it comes to the excitement that comes around looking at robotics companies or any of these companies in the AI market. But you do have to consider the real revenues that they're seeing right at this moment. And so when you look at, let's say, robotics stocks, and you look at currently, we see Rich Tech Robotics. Rich Tech Robotics is at 448. It's one of the most hyped stocks. Okay, so we're looking at, we're saying maybe they continue up, but for the most part, we've been very bearish. I think that was like a super bull case, but we're actually anticipating more of a break in pattern here, or that they were going to sell down and then get rejected by that rising support that they saw. And yes, they could continue to rally, but Rich Tech Robotics, while they have these robotics and they look pretty cool, the revenues are not really catching up, and they have a negative net income. They're only making $1 million in revenue. $1 million in revenue per quarter? I mean, gosh, that's like nothing for a robotics company. And market cap 884 million. That's it. Like, or that's way higher than what it should be given their current $1 million revenue is what I'm saying. So with Rich Tech, they've raised some money. They got 100 million in assets. I don't know about that $800 million market cap. I think they're just overbought right now, personally, and maybe they can continue to make some momentum. But I just, from a current valuation standpoint, I wouldn't touch it currently. All right, what else do we got going? Jai says, did we check for BBAI? Where do you see BBAI going from here? Looks like everyone is seeing BBAI at $10 a share, says Jai. Where do I see from here? I would say that, this is a volatile moment right now in the defense market. We saw some nice recoveries towards the end of the week, but we got to watch closely as you get into some levels where we're now validating a previous resistance on BBAI at about $6.50. And they broke out this week. That's exactly what we anticipated, for them to break out and get above that 650. Then they sold back down and validated that 650 on Friday. And then now they're holding above 650. So currently, you want to watch that $6.50 level. If they can hold above that current level, you're looking at more sustained bullish momentum. If they break below, you're now targeting back down to 550, which doesn't look so hot. But if they hold above 650 on Big Bear AI, you're looking at, again, potentially continuing this surge to $8 a share, which is a 25% increase from here. So Big Bear AI, what do I think about it? I mean, I've continued to hold over the last year. We've bought at 280, saw it go up to 10, held, saw it go down to 230, held, or 280, and we're still holding it. And so the conflict that I have when I think about Big Bear is that the long term is much more certain than the short term. The short term, even when we're looking at our projections from AI, a lot of times, if you look at the projections from like Big Bear AI over on Prophecy app, you're going to find that the next month, in the next 6 months, in the next year, change slower in their projections than what changes the next day, the next week, or the next few hours, right? Those things change because of a tweet, because of a shift in hawkishness or comments from the Federal Reserve or something. Those things change very quickly. And so the longer term projections, if you kind of look here, let's take a look. The 1 month is about 9% bullish, with institutional buying and selling showing more buys than sells, and insiders a little bit more sells. But overall, when we're looking at the Claude analysis into the next year, it's one of the most bullish projections we've seen, and it's part of the recent developments in the Veriscan technology. When we're in the US and you go through the airports, you're going to see them scan your face. funny story, I'm sitting out here looking at these different, big buildings here in Buenos Aires. And when I'm looking out, because I get really motivated looking at the Oracle building across the street, because we're building this company, this AI company, and it's called Prophecy. And it's actually, I get a lot of, I like to just look at the buildings. But every single apartment had a TV on, and they were all watching the same soccer game, the same football game, right? And I'm watching all the screens change at the same time and change like this, and I thought, man, this is so big, this the culture of football, right? When the World Cup comes to the US and you get millions of people coming into the United States for the World Cup, this is one of the top focuses from this company, Big Bear AI, BBAI stock. If you look at what they've talked about in some of their recent announcements and you kind of look at LinkedIn, they've said one of the top things they're preparing for is the FIFA World Cup and the 2028 Olympics. It's coming to America. You're going to see millions of people coming in and out of the US. And with their CEO previously in the Department of Homeland Security, and these various scans getting deployed at the major airports like LAX and Denver and JFK, scanning the face of people that are coming in and out of the US. You're looking at a biometrics and AI process and technology. It's going to see a lot of data. And what do we know? You could call big tech companies big data almost. You could look at the main focuses from the best companies in tech, and a lot of it has to do with data, right? And so there's a lot of money around that. There's a lot of integrity that's needed for that to be handled responsibly. And ultimately, they're collecting a lot of data, millions of data points that most likely it's going to be the interest of the Department of Defense, or they already got partnerships with the Pentagon and Palantir and some others, even Redwire, like the stock we went over earlier there with Big Bear AI. So I think, from a shorter term perspective, the volatility's, it's real. You're looking at the support at 650. We'd love to see that continuation. It's possible we see this surge up to $8 a share and continue up into that $10 range when you take a bigger step back, kind of see that overall trend that we've got. You're kind of looking at a potential like this of about $10 a share. Then when we look at the Prophecy app, which takes all of the analysis that I normally do along with real-time data and puts it into the Claude or the OpenAI or Grok models, the Claude projections over the next year are as high as 55% bullish on Big Bear. And so again, $6.50 support, I'd watch it closely and see if they can continue up, because it's not a company you really want to miss. And it's also not a company you want to FOMO into if you don't have a plan, because it's got volatility on the short term that you got to be ready for. And you got to have a plan on the short term, and if you're not going to be ready if you don't want to hold something longer, or you wouldn't want to risk money on the shorter term, it's probably something you got to have a very clear stop and profit laid out. And you probably want that stop a lot smaller than the amount of profit that you're going for. And in proportion to the profit you're going for, it's got to be, usually how we do it is 1 to 5. In fact, I think, there is there's a profit calculator that I use and developed for our StockMate members, but you guys can always use it, that you can type in, your entry, and it's kind of for the shorter term to keep people disciplined and also like not lose money. But you can, go ahead and I think let me check the link. I think it's the first link in the description. And you can go grab it, but you basically you can type in your shares and then, kind of move it proportionally to, what your profit is. If you were going to pick up, let's say 2,300 shares, you could kind of see what does it look like from the percent increase to the percent decrease, proportionally adjusted for your risk, and then what would that actual price be, and what would the actual return be for that when you have the specified stop price and the specified target price. That will help you to be able to manage risk, so that if you're not in it for the long term and you don't look to add on the dips and what have you, that when things don't go bullish, it's not that it doesn't go according to plan. It still goes according to plan. Is it ideal? No. If it hits your stop, no. But at least you don't lose money compared to, all the trades you're going for that are going for so much more profit than that of your risk. And so that's really important. It's a really important shorter term plan that we always implement for investors, newer and experienced. It really does help. What else do we got going on? You got Elvis. They had a $4.6 billion contract. What? Is that true? LUNR. So LUNR is a space infrastructure play. And I remember when I first discovered this company, and you know how when you find a company and you say, no, this isn't, is this like an idea? Is this a prototype? But then you realize it's a real thing. You're like, oh, this is great. That's exactly what happened when I found this company. And what I realized is that their value was much lower, and their balance sheet has been growing significantly up to 750 million than their current market cap was. And usually when we find deals like that, they turn into a payout. When we were able to find like AMD this year and we made that 100% trade, or Rigetti, for example, and triple digit gains, those positions were only possible because we looked at some of those same indicators that we were just talking about, and not indicators. They're basically probability to what an institution looks for when investing. And so with LUNR, I don't know what you mean. Did they sign like a $4.6 billion deal or something? Because I did not see that. Let's see what they got. Did they come out with a new deal? Investors. Let's see. They acquired a company. No, I don't see a 4.6 billion. What are you talking about? What are you talking about, Willis? Okay, 4.6. All right. I think the market is going to crash tomorrow, says Native Man. I got to be careful what I read. Someone could say something like, I hate ice cream, and I would read it here, and then people would think I hate ice cream, and I love ice cream. So it says, I think the market is going to crash tomorrow, says this gentleman. Okay. What are you going to do about it? And why? Why do you think that? Because, I want you to think about what are the main fears around the market right now. The main fears around the market are not necessarily related to institutions selling, but more related to, what do people most talk about? The debasement of the currency, the inflation that's happening, that houses are becoming more difficult to afford or unaffordable, and that grocery prices are going up or what have you. Like, that's what people talk about, and that's actually like the main things that happen when you look at like prices and things. But literally, if those things happen, the safest place to be is not holding cash, but to be holding investments. And so when those things take place, which are like the main fears, the main reason that people look at Bitcoin as valuable, or gold surged to all-time highs because people want to hold currency that's strong, is because at that moment, when that happens and you have people scared about inflation or what have you, in that case, if that happens, asset prices will surge because the dollar will become worth less. Not worth less, but worth less. And so, I want re-engineer, okay, or take a step back and look at why you're having fear, and really look at the reality. Because I think the reality is the market's always correct, but they always rebound, and when they do, they rebound more than they corrected. And it's like, as surely as the sun comes up, I can look at the buildings, see the people working, I could see the companies developing new products every day that are making people's lives easier. And we're in a golden age right now. So we'll see. I don't think that I personally am not in the doomsday conversation as much. I think we're actually finding that companies realize that in order to stay alive, they have to just contribute more value to society. And it's helping. Okay, cool. So what else have we got? Luis, how can I get the link? Can you put the link in the chat? Oh, yeah, first link in the description, man, for that profit calculator. And then we'll be seeing if any opportunities present themselves tomorrow morning, guys. We'll be watching. Kurt says Lunar remains a strong contender for NASA's lunar terrain vehicle. They already signed some deals around the lunar terrain, and they're working with NASA, and they've recently launched some new spacecraft. So yes, I agree. And yeah, we'll be watching. You know, they might tell you, you might hear people tell you all the time about market dips and, oh, this is the end or what have you. I'm telling you, today, people are starting to realize. People realize that there's manipulation and negativity. People are realizing that. When people see dips now, it's different than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. In the past, people see a dip and they say, oh, I'm not going to touch that. That's scary. Nowadays, people have been trained and people understand psychology more and they say, oh, I'm going to buy more. It's just like, I was talking with my wife earlier where we were going to have some dinner with some family, and we're sitting at the table and there's this TV with some news on it. And a year or two ago, when we came here to Argentina and we were seeing, you know, a news station, everything was negative. Like, this person got messed up and look at this kidnapping and this and, you know, all these things. But now they've realized, and my wife, remember, she told me, I said, do you remember, Will, when I made a comment to you, she said that the news is so negative, and everybody knows that they do that because it gets more clicks and more views and all this. And they said, and she said, she went, if you would realize, if they would realize that these stations aren't even getting watched anymore. People already realize that it's negative and meant to suck your attention, so they don't watch it. And I said, yeah, that makes sense. Like, who the heck watches that negative stuff all day, right? Now, some people do, but here's the deal. We come back this year and we're hanging out at family dinner, and we're playing the news on the TV. We're looking at it from the table while we're eating, and it is positive news. And literally the headline was like, good news today, good news today. And they intentionally make it positive, and they start showing things like robotics and agriculture, and they're, you know, started a new big trend here with pistachios and how they're doing a big pistachio in agriculture, drones, and people flying these cars that people are flying around, and it's positive. And so the reason that I say that is because they might tell you that this is bad and this is going on and this in the media and what you see. But the reality is not only is there things like inflation where stocks become more valuable, but these companies are creating more value at a faster rate than ever before because they have access to technology that's compounding the progress and the efficiency of them completing tasks. So these companies are making way more money faster and contributing more value faster with less effort than ever before. And so while the market goes up and people get scared in this and they say, not only do you have inflation working in your favor, but you also got the and I don't want to say working in your favor, but ultimately you're safer in stocks. But then you also have the actual company contributions skyrocketing at record speeds. And so I think that's really important to understand right now. So if you're in a place where you're trying to understand the markets and you're getting to the point where if you're in a place where you feel like you almost understand it, you want to invest in the space tech markets, the AI markets, the quantum markets, and you want to know about the data center companies, the robotics companies, and you want to have a pulse on the AI market, then I would encourage you to simply take a look at the second link below, We'll be there tomorrow morning at Market Open for our daily live trading. We're there Monday through Friday. We originally had lifetime access. We brought back a subscription. People didn't like it, but we're coming up with a new model that will be a little bit more favorable. But for the time being, you can still get lifetime access to our sessions. You get an email about 15 minutes before Market Open. You can join us there at Market Open tomorrow morning. See my entries, see my exits. Surround yourself with 30 individuals who have a net worth of over 7 figures, okay, in Stockmate. We got targets for the week. We got press releases from some members. Lawrence is quite active, and we have some investors in here that are talking about the same stocks you're probably looking at and giving some great insights. And I tell you this, but I'm not joking. The best insights on the channel don't come from me. They come from ideas that come out here in Stockmate. And if you want to get access, get books, get learning materials, and also join us in our live trading sessions every morning, it's the second link below. All you have to do is click the second link to also claim your free t-shirt. I'll send it to you anywhere in the world when you join Stockmate. And for right now, it's lifetime access, but we are rolling into the subscription, should be by the end of this week. Got to talk with my team and kind of see what's going on there. So we got some other things going on with the Prophecy app as well, which you get exclusive first access and dibs to some great offers if you're looking to get your hands on AI tools when you're a part of Stockmate as well. So I would encourage you to have a look. Appreciate you all. Thanks so much for tuning in. If I earned your thumbs up, hit the like button. Thanks, XPLR World. You bought some BBAI. Awesome, man. Hopefully it wasn't just because of my videos, but I appreciate you. Or at least it was insight based and that you felt you were able to make a decision because you had all the facts, and it wasn't because you heard me talking about it. So you thought, oh, he's talking about it, so I'm going to buy it because he's talking about it, but probably because you got some good insights and then you got to see everything and then think for yourself. Hope so. Okay. JXP, what's going on? Many people think there's an AI bubble. Yeah, we went over it. Many people think a lot of things. And 95% seem to miss and not get the word by the time things shift. Sold all my crypto and went into BBI, SoFi, Nibius, and Tempest AI. Wow. Interesting. Interesting plays. Thanks for sharing that. Appreciate you guys. Marty, I appreciate you all. Thanks so much for tuning in. JZev, True Will like CNN. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for tuning in. Shadow B, happy trading team. Yeah, of course. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for tuning in. And smash the like button if I earned it. Do consider subscribing. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care.